cannot tell you how unstuck you will become when you have 15 patients to write about. You cannot handle that level of detail sufficiently. You will be doing yourself a disservice. Yes, I understand that will cost you 2 patients a day, potentially, 10 patients in a week. That's a lot of money. You know what's a lot more money? Somebody like me tearing your world apart and your insurance premium going up forever.
I'd like to just sort of wind back to clinical notes because we didn't gloss over it, we spoke about it, but I'd like to just talk about it in a little more detail and perhaps give some context as to my experience. You're in a clinic, you've got an injector there who might see 10, 15 patients in a day. They'll get to the end of the day and then they'll write their clinical notes for all 10 to 15 patients whilst they're doing drug counts and rushing to get out of the door. And I've had this conversation with injectors like ad nauseum. Do it at the time. How are you going to remember every piece of information, every conversation that you had at 6 p.m. when your first conversation took place at 10 a.m.? So it would be great if you could just break down, just at a very high level, what constitutes good contemporaneous notes, what level of detail are you looking for, and maybe just a word of caution to doing notes retrospectively where you potentially cannot remember every detail, and in some instances, and it's always going to be the one where you forgot something, which is the patient that's going to have potential recourse or reason to be upset. So if you could just talk on that a little bit, would be great.
I run a really busy practice, overseeing numerous lawyers and going to court 4 to 5 days a week. And I get it. I really do get that you need paperwork like a hole in the head. But I make it a rule. The second I walk out of a courtroom, even if I've got a zillion things to do, I will sit down and I will make my note then and there. I will talk about who was the magistrate that I was in front of, or who was the judge, who was opposing counsel, what did we discuss? And I will give a high-level overview that will enable me to understand, one, what needs to be done next, what happened, and how much should I bill for my time? These are 3 really important questions. And if anyone ever questions what happened, I can say I did it as soon as I can. I cannot tell you how unstuck you will become when you have 15 patients to write about. You cannot handle that level of detail sufficiently. You will be doing yourself a disservice. Yes, I understand that will cost you 2 patients a day, potentially, 10 patients in a week. That's a lot of money. You know what's a lot more money? Somebody like me tearing your world apart and your insurance premium going up forever because you didn't take detailed notes. It doesn't need to be I said, she said, he said. It's not an affidavit or anything to that extent, but it needs to be patient is this. I mean, I've won cases on the back of things being, patient is 34-year-old male. It's like, no, he's not. He's a 31-year-old male. Like, how can I trust anything you've written after that if you've gotten the age wrong or the date of birth wrong? Patient said he was worried about, patient said worried about frown lines. I go, why did you go in there? Oh, I went in there for cheek filler. It's like, well, it doesn't mesh up. So you should do them as close as you can to the time. Enough that a good rule of thumb is if you handed this note over to another competent professional, could they follow along with this patient's story?
Thanks so much for watching the podcast clip. You can listen to the whole audio episode of the podcast on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please also leave us a review on the podcast app.
If you like what we do, please smash the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when we release new content.